Welcome to this episode of Clinically Pressed. On this episode, we have Dr. Kyle and Joel, myself, talking about the interprofessional collaboration between chiropractors and athletic trainers. We're going to have the opportunity in a couple weeks to go and discuss at a Wisconsin Chiropractic Association convention around sports, the collaboration that we've developed over the past couple years and how we work to maximize each other's strengths and then really utilize each other in a different setting. A lot of Dr. Kyle's specific skill set, and then just some of the ideas we've taken from that and built into the athletic training world, and then combining that with sports performance. So check out some more information on that at the Wisconsin Chiropractic Association's website. We'll also have a link on clinicallypressed.com. Also, if you're watching this, please go over to iTunes, give us a rating and review. 5-star ratings would be greatly appreciated. With setting up a review, we want your feedback. We want things that are going to help us make the podcast better, things you might want to hear about. But also, by leaving a review, we are going to enter you in to win one of our mobility kits. If you're wondering what that looks like, again, jump over to clinicallypressed.com and check that out. We will be doing a once-a-month giveaway, so please put in a review. If you've already put one in, you're still entered, but what we'll do is read your name out on the next episode to get in contact with you and go from there. Thank you and enjoy this episode.
So Joel and Kyle here, and we're just going to talk a little bit about a seminar that we have coming up through the Wisconsin Chiropractic Association, WCA. We're going to be teaching a kind of a two-part course, I guess I would say. They're both going to be separate, but build on each other as well. So you could, take one or the other.
Separate but related.
Or both, yeah. All kind of tied in, related. And just want to give a little bit of a preview on what the background is on those, and hopefully just kind of go from there. So the first course is just kind of like integrating athletic training, performance, and chiropractic practices, and just we're going to get into a little bit and into those topics and how we have worked together and kind of combined our backgrounds into the best setting for the patient, and I think it's worked well, and hopefully we can provide some information that's useful for others. And then the second part on Sunday is going to be again just combining disciplines and treatment and performance, and in that one we kind of hope to get into a little bit more depth on the application side of things, and I think Joel brings some really nice background, not only in athletic training, but also the sports performance side of things with running the SPC at UWL. So, I don't know. What do you think? I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be good. I think we got to thank Jeff Sargent on throwing us this opportunity. He thought it would be unique because this is a sports-focused convention, I guess, is what they're trying to do with it, but kind of the uniqueness of having an athletic trainer and a chiropractor working together directly in the care of people, which I don't know, in my world is not all that unique. I don't know how you've seen it at other places with reaching out with it, but anyway, just kind of starting with it and how we got started, and I think that was kind of an interesting story about
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's always interesting, and we'll get into more detail and probably examples in the convention as we get into this, but it's the who you know, not what you know kind of thing, because it's not like we actively were looking and reaching out to people within the region, and you just happened to run into a buddy of ours, Kevin Schultz.
Yeah.
I believe it was Glow
at
the time with some massage soft tissue thing with your massage therapist that still works at Cooley Health, and
Correct.
somehow paths got crossed. And
met Kevin through Holly, who's
Yep.
a massage therapist. They kind of had like a panel at that time when Gold was still there, and they'd bring in different practitioners just to kind of get input on their program to make it better, which was really cool. And I got to meet Kevin through that, and he kind of, I think, reached out to Holly to get me in touch with you guys, and just came down and met. And I agree with you with like the who you know, but then to some degree you kind of have to have a what you know as well, because if I would have come down there and it just scared you guys away, or like, what is this guy talking about, I don't think that you probably would have had me come back at all. So
yeah, I think, and that'll be the interesting part of this. Just I've seen a bunch of arrays of this relationship, and I'd say the one that we have and ones I've had with people I've worked with in the past have been really good, where it's a complementary type of thing. And when I say that, we're utilizing you, but I don't know that we're necessarily providing a ton back. It's not like we're going and treating Dr. Kyle's patients at his clinic, but obviously we were willing to help out in any lending hand that we can, whereas like you're coming down helping us, and we're utilizing your skills to try and complement what we do, which I feel like is mainly what the relationship tends to be when it becomes an athletic trainer and a chiropractor in the athletic setting, especially in a collegiate or any kind of school setting. Is at least what I've seen. If there's other models out there, I'd love to hear about them on how that works. But yeah, I think you're right, and that's where I was fairly new on the job and wanted to make sure that things were under control, and that we weren't going too far down the ether of some things with what you did, and also not trying to make it, and we try and sniff this out as athletic trainers, where it's coming down for the sole purpose of trying to get referrals back or use it as a publicity thing about doing all this stuff. Like, that's a huge red flag on, well, the only thing that's going to fix you is if I see you and like, that's great if you think that, but when we get to see our patients on a daily basis and we interact with them on a daily basis, which is unique in just any kind of healthcare setting, that doesn't really work, because we're going to see them, and if that's what they're getting in their head, it's not going to be beneficial for the whole greater good.
Yeah,
so,
it's kind of like,
I don't know how I came across on our first meeting. I didn't hope it wasn't too much of an a-hole, but trying to very much weed that out, where it wasn't just to come down and oh, I do this, but make sure you send type of a deal.
Yeah, I think people can see that in a hurry if there's a hidden agenda, or something else underlying, that they have ulterior motives with it. So yeah, I don't know. I think you had a lot of questions just regarding on my background and treatment techniques and kind of the way that I would approach care, which I think I didn't take it negatively. I thought it was all good questions to ask, and I would have wanted to know the same thing. So I don't know. I think it was just good to be open, both on your end and my end, because obviously if it's not going to be a good fit, that's eventually going to come about regardless, whether it's now or a year down the road, where you just realize that it's just not going to work out. So I think it's just good to be open on the front end, and this is what we're looking for. This is what I can bring, or
I thought that, and I'm going to say this with a big asterisk by it, like, it's not bad to have someone that comes down and just wants to adjust. Like, that can be very beneficial. It's worked for us on another end of the spectrum. We've had that before at other places that I've been, but your approach to wanting to spend some time to not necessarily do like the complete, thorough, full-on evaluation, because you'd come down and you'd see 3 people maybe, but to see enough, but to have more than just like, oh, I'll spend 2 minutes with them, just adjust them, and then move on to the next one. We've actually kind of, it seems like it's evolved where it's more like you come in and you do everything else, and then the adjustments almost at the end, to some degree in a lot of cases, And you even ask, it's like if they want to be or not, because that's not even what we're targeting when we have them see you, which I think is unique, but has been very beneficial for what we've been trying to do with some specific cases, mainly around back pain or even hip pain, and actually for the amount of work we've done with shoulders and getting those engaged with you as well.
Mm-hmm. It's just one other tool to bring to the table, and sometimes an adjustment's all that a person needs, and you can't discount the power of the adjustment if that's what is truly needed. But a lot of times there's obviously other components to the body, and if it's been more of a chronic type of an issue or overuse, maybe you kind of need to do some rehab where you're retraining things. And I think that's where we've focused a lot more with the athletes and seen pretty positive outcomes for the most part.
I agree.
Just addressing those sides of things too. It's nice to spend a little bit of time with the patient. And I think my treatment has changed from when I first started down there to where it is now.
Yeah, same with mine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
trending down
absolutely.
and seeing some different things, and I probably never would have heard of DNS. It wouldn't have crossed my wheelhouse, most likely, had we not connected. So that's been good, and that's led to a bunch of other significant and really good things, just with connections to continuing ed suppliers. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. I mean, even like when I was down there, I think initially I would try to almost like fix everybody right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that wasn't going to be an option all the time, but I think I'd put more of an emphasis on it then, whereas now just kind of getting into the flow of like, okay, this is where they're at in their season. Okay, what's the greater goal?
Yep.
And I think we've gotten better at working together with
Absolutely.
Okay, this is what I'll do, but maybe here's some things that the athletic trainers can do along the line, rather than trying to get everything done all at once. So that's been kind of cool to.
Right, and we've talked about this, and we'll get into more depth, obviously, during the convention on it, as we'll have 4 hours to talk, not 30 minutes, but certain cases, it's now, I think this is what you need, whether it's an immediate adjustment or to start off on some of the DNS principles, whether it just be the breathing or the breathing then turning into all the different progressions to kind of work with stuff. And while, yes, I've gone to the courses with you and you've come down and done some in-services for our staff and whatnot, you do it all day, every day that you're in practicing as kind of your base. Don't want me to speak for you too much, but from what I can understand, kind of your base level, this is where I kind of start, and then we see what we need to do from there. And I've gotten to the point where if I know somebody needs that, we may start simple, but I want the initial to be with you to help them feel from, I would say, a more experienced or like seasoned practitioner of it, than maybe kind of half starting it with me, not quite getting to where we want to go, when I think we can get more benefit from starting with you. And then, like you said, carrying on that to the next week when they can follow up with you, but then also knowing that we have the ability to do soft tissue treatments throughout that to add into it. While we're trying to retrain one thing, we may have loosen up the other, throwing different aspects of rehab in it, so it keeps it interesting for the athlete. That has been where we've seen the greatest benefit of it. And then also just talking about what we would modify in practice or lifting or anything like that, which, taking your recommendations in it plus our working knowledge of what they're actually doing to then tie that into a whole big patient care picture.
Yeah, I think a lot of times they don't even realize how nice they have it, really, to have that, the two sides, the expertise. Another aspect of that, like you said, the talking through things and the understanding, I think that's been huge, just to be able to
we speed up your history because we can give it to you.
Yeah, you do. I mean, just
here's what we've ruled out, kind of a deal.
You get the patient's feedback, the athlete's feedback, but also it's nice to talk to you guys ahead of time because you get the history from you and kind of your spin on it, like, well, this is really kind of what's been going on. It's nice to see that side. But then being able to really explain things to the athlete too, I think helps their understanding of what's going on and maybe why it's important to do said exercises, or I don't know, that's been helpful. Yeah. And we're talking about more of the benefits of what I can bring to the table, but on my side, it's for the chiropractors out there, and I think that's why it's going to be great for these presentations for chiropractors to see the benefits that it provides what you can bring to the table, whether it's you or different athletic trainer, just the expertise that you have with those on the field injuries, like especially some of those acute things, or even if it's the chronic things, like you guys are in it all day every day. Also, just maybe in a different world a little bit. But how have these chronic conditions played out throughout the season for, say a cross country runner or this football player? Because I don't know, each individual sport's different with the demands that those sports bring. And, you got wrestling where anything can happen, it's just so random, as opposed to, like we mentioned, cross country, where it's a lot more, what's going to happen. It's just the consistency. So
the chronic repetitiveness
of
it.
So I don't know. I'm looking forward to really getting into all the nitty gritty of all this. And
I'm curious as to where we'll see, I've only had, in my experience, like having the questions about trying to get into the mix. A course I went to was really interesting in that I was taking it with a lot of chiropractic students. And then I was the only athletic trainer that everybody was being taught by a chiropractor, but who has spent some time working in higher level athletics professionally and whatnot. And, we actually got into this conversation about how does that even start? And he was very much cautioning these younger students is don't walk into the door thumping your chest. I am freshly graduated doctor of chiropractic. Get out of my way. I'm going to fix everybody type of thing, which we would say the same thing about ATs is don't go out into that meeting thinking, well, you don't need help, because it's just too big for everybody to know how to do it and do it properly. And the insights and the different angles that it comes from is kind of what he was preaching, especially in the athletics setting. Our profession as athletic training kind of has a stranglehold on that, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise. There's some differing opinions out there I was listening to just this past weekend, but everybody going in with an open mind with that idea of the collaboration, I think, is what's the main key. And it'll be interesting to hear if there's been barriers to that and what those are that people have experienced.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because always you're going to have, like you said, you can't do it all by yourself. Well, how can you utilize the skills that you have and the skills of, the other side, whether it's ATC or Chiro, put those things together and it's going to be that much better.
Yeah, I think whenever I talk about it, the interprofessional thing, not just between ATCs and DCs, but just the whole bit, is that everybody's got to check their ego at the door. Because if you don't, somebody's going to get offended. Somebody's going to feel like you're coming in. Even if you don't mean to, it's real easy. And we've run into that, and this is more examples, and this would be I think, of what not to do, because it comes that way, is, you come in and whether you just go and help someone, and we see this more with relatives, and sometimes friends and whatnot, how does that sit over with the athletic trainer and just flip the script of like, what happened if I just walked into your clinic, said, oh, don't worry, I got this one, started doing my thing, and you just looked at me like, wait, what are you doing? And I think that is probably would be like my biggest takeaway to give someone is most of ATs, not all, but most, realize we have shortcomings isn't the right word, or even deficiencies, but we can't be experts in everything. And I think that is the biggest part of that, is we're open to that as long as it's a work with, not work for type of a relationship.
Sure.
And that's the huge one when you're trying to get your foot in the door, bringing things to the table, which we've seen and just seen that expand, because it's been 4 years,
I think so,
now, and we're now to the point where, yes, you're seeing people on a weekly basis, but we're taking some of the things that you believe in and truly, use on a daily basis, and now we're trying to figure out how to show it and utilize it on a bigger scale. Now we're moving beyond just the individual patient, which I would say a high majority get the benefit of it. Some will say, "Oh, the breathing, yeah, that's," and you can't win everybody. I think everybody has experienced that. But now taking it, and we've got strength coaches interested in it, and coaches interested in it, and some, if not a decent amount of athletes that are like, that could actually make a difference. And it's not all just, well, I got to come in and adjust you or work hands-on with you to make this happen. It's the actual teaching of a principle.
Absolutely. I mean, we went over that with us.
That was a lot. Sorry.
No, it was good. I mean, I totally agree. Like you said, it's on a much larger scale, and I would argue it's almost more on a preventative side there as well. If you can implement some of these things on a prehab basis, or if you don't want to spin it that way to the athletes, but this is part of your workout, or this is part of your warm-up, or part of the practice, or whatever. I think it is really good, and it benefits everybody. So it's cool. You kind of see the broader application of it. It's exciting. It's fun. It's cool when they're just this week with the track and field coaches and the athletes too. That was an awesome group, and just to see them really diving into it, and did
you have them actually demonstrate?
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
okay. How'd that go?
Oh, it was a bigger group than I thought it would be. So I was expecting a smaller group where we could kind of just break up in a small group. So a larger scale, we kind of just improvised on the fly, but it was really good. We haven't had them do some things with their shoes off, just kind of starting with the ground up with their feet.
Okay.
And, I think it's nice when you can show somebody how important something is, and then show them that they kind of suck at it.
Well, then they can feel it, right?
Then they can feel it. Yeah, that's huge. That's everything. And then, okay, now let's fix that. And then I think kind of the light bulbs go off, and that's really where it gets fun. And then they want to try it and implement it. And it's all been good. So I'm excited. With the course, we kind of talked about painting that overall picture initially, and I think maybe you're obviously at a university setting, and you've got a background working at some pretty large D1 places. You're at a D3 now, but you've got kind of experience across the board. I don't know what your experience is with the high school athletic training world. I know you've worked with them, not in it as much, but for other DCs out there that may be listening or attending, that might be their extent of who they're working with if they're not in a close place to a university or something. So I think it applies across the board, though, how it works here. You could easily implement it into your town's high school program or whatever the athletics are.
Yeah, I would caution those that unless you're going to a major university or one that has some money, don't expect a paycheck, or if you do, not a very big one. In our situation, there isn't money for it. There just isn't, and we understand that, and we try and be flexible from our end. But I would assume, unless it is a very well-to-do in terms, they're just set up and they have been for a while, high school situation, I don't know that there's going to be don't do it till you think you're going to get rich. That it's going to necessarily replace clinic hours in terms of that, because I'm not sure that it's going to for you, and I think that would be a caution. But even with that, trying to find times, and I won't speak for you, but that aren't overly busy in clinic, that makes sense to come down. And trust me, with as much as we can. If there needs to be a referral, we do what we can to, reciprocate things and do all the different stuff there. But yeah, it might not bring a paycheck, and just to keep that in mind. But like you're kind of saying, the approach, of, hey, really want to help. Here's a skill set I can offer. Do you think there's something that can fit here that makes sense? Let's chat about it, I think, is the way to go. And then again, kind of knowing roles to a degree. Like if an athletic trainer is covering an event, they expect to be the initial medical provider to it. It is not the most fun thing in the world where we go out to attend to something and somebody else happens to be there that isn't directly involved with said event. Like, again, how does that come off? And this is on a much broader scale. If somebody comes in with back pain to your clinic and I'm sitting in a chair and go, oh, don't worry, I got this one, type of a deal.
Yeah.
And so,
especially when it's unexpected.
Right, yes, yeah, definitely. And if you make things worse, that is a quick way to not, for anybody, that's just a quick way to do it. But yeah, those would be things that you just keep in mind, that there's ways to make it beneficial, but pay in t-shirts and thanks.
But I mean, that makes a great point. You gotta love it,
Right.
Like I wouldn't still be doing it if I didn't love to be on that side of things,
right,
like with the athletic setting. So if it's not your interest, no worries at all, but it's just probably not going to work out. But if that's your interest, you want to treat athletes or more of an athletic population, I think it's a great way to be involved in that to a capacity. And maybe you don't get the paycheck for the hours that you're putting in there, but you're getting, from my end, I've gained a ton of clinical experience, because there's things that we go to a seminar on. It's like, well, let's play around today. Let's we just learned this. Let's try it out, and not like in a bad way, that you're going to hurt somebody, like you said, or anything like that. But
get to work with some relatively high level athletes
for sure. Yeah, and put different things to test and see how that. Okay, they're going to go back out to practice or to compete that weekend, and how are they coming back, and how do they respond to that, and so then you can apply that to the athletes that come into, your clinic. Like you're going to be, I'm much more confident when I get a, a high school athlete or just a different patient that's maybe a CrossFitter or just someone that's a higher level athlete. You've got all this experience in your back pocket that you've, been able to kind of tweak along the way. And I think it also, from a marketing side of things, like people know that I come down and treat the athletes, so they're going to be much more likely, I think, to come here, trusting that that's something that I see on a more frequent basis than maybe just the other person on the corner or whatever. And I think there's just unseen benefits than just a paycheck
for sure
as well. So although the t-shirts are nice,
we try and keep you outfitted. Just trying to get your closet to look like.
I joke, half of my wardrobe now is UWL stuff.
We're doing our job then.
It's all good. Yeah, and then for the second day, we kind of talked about getting into a little bit more practical applications, and I'm really excited for that aspect as well. Like I said, you've got a ton of clinical experience, which is fun, and the sports performance side is very unique to you. I don't think a lot of athletic trainers are going to kind of have the two hats that you wear, but I think that's a benefit that is going to be presented here, that, it's kind of like three different worlds. You have the DC, the ATC, and then the sports performance side of thing, which is super interesting to me.
Yeah, I always joke about that one when I talk to recruits, because I oversee both. And I joke that one part of my job is directly related to keeping you away from the other part of my job. And that's one that we've really focused on the last couple of years, and will continue to try and expand, is on our performance side, the injury prevention. I know that can be a buzzword, but even if you don't say the prevention, the resiliency of it, by just making people better movers, better athletes, so they can adapt to the stresses that are getting put on them, and tying a lot of those things in terms of the movement and even some of the exercises, and continuing to see that evolve with some of the things that that we've implemented down in clinic with you, and then talking with the teams and whatnot, like you just mentioned, track. I think you're seeing that grow, and we're trying to be on the forefront of that. I'm fairly certain DNS has been out at Exos in Arizona doing courses. We model off of them. We think they are the best at what they do, just in all facets of it. So the more we can emulate that, I think we're only setting ourselves up for the better. So every time I see that, it's like, oh yeah, we've already started doing that. Off we go. And it doesn't have to just be that. There could be different things that are involved in that. Obviously every chiropractor along with AT has their own unique expertise or niche or things that they have found to work, and it doesn't have to be, we keep referring to it, but that's what we're going to kind of talk about quite a bit. It can be extremely beneficial. That can be the thing. And sports performance, to me is, again, not only training, but it's all the other things. We've been looking at ACL stuff recently for a couple other projects, and it keeps coming back that a screening is all well and good, but it all comes back to just proper training is your prevention. Teaching people how to move and teach them how to do things correctly is what it takes, and that's the fun part about looking at sports performance, not just making them bigger and stronger. So
you almost wish that a lot of universities had the head ATC running the sports performance, just
and if you want to make a difference in a high school,
like both sides of things, and
like, kids being better athletes, and every college AT and strength coach loving you, it doesn't take much, but if you can get in at that level, I think you can make kids significantly better athletes just by focusing on those simple things. You don't have to get crazy. There's not to be bands and chains and fancy programs. You teach them how to move properly, cut, accelerate, change direction, and get sound basics of movement and then strength. That's powerful. That's some
really
powerful
is.
stuff.
And you talked about, okay, one aspect of the job keeps people away from the other aspect of the job. Well, something happens, they have to see on the AT side of things, they're going to be getting back to the weight room and the sports performance side. So it's nice to be able to have that side of things, like, okay, you're going to be doing some rehab. Let's put it in. It's going right back. It fits perfectly. And
I found myself saying that more and more lately. Like, don't think of this as rehab. Think of this as kind of a workout. Like, we're past the little rehab, I'm stereotyping, but TheraBand exercises and basic stretches. We're past that. We're got to go, and like, you should sweat in rehab. Like, that's what you need to do to get to that next thing. I found myself saying that more and more lately in that transition back to it.
We just talked with Sean Gallagher, DC out in Pennsylvania, and he's doing a lot of that. He just alluded to that a lot as well. Like, I think people discount the power of a strength program or strength training in terms of moving well, and even as a rehab.
For sure.
Yeah, so cool.
I think that pretty much sums it up and kind of talks on the topics and hit on some of the things that we're going to talk about, but also gives a little something for everybody to take away. So I think to wrap it up, the convention is in Wausau on the 23rd and 24th of February. We'll be talking in the afternoon on Saturday and the morning on Sunday. I believe it starts on Saturday.
I think so.
Saturday morning. So if you're going to that, check out Wisconsin Chiropractic Association's website for registration and all the details. That'd probably be the best place so we don't screw something up on that. But yeah, we look forward.
Right. Get that linked up, and I'm sure they'll be sending it out and information as well.
Yeah.
Definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to A, spreading the information, but B, just getting the feedback. I hope that it's like live in the moment thing. I hope we can make it interactive. I prefer that way. I think that lends to getting more out of it for the people listening than just yakking at you and hoping that something is taking hold. So that'll be fun.
For sure. So if you're
being an athletic trainer in a room full of chiropractors.
But you won't get eaten alive.
Nah, I'm all right.
yeah, looking forward to it. So if you're thinking about it, definitely look into it a little bit more. If you have questions ahead of time, let us know. We'd be happy to answer them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you do plan to go, please bring your questions and anything else too, because like Joel mentioned, interaction is good, and yeah, make it applicable.
Awesome.
Sweet. All right. See you there. Thank you for checking out this episode of Clinically Pressed. Go to clinicallypressed.com for full show notes and links to everything that was covered in this episode. While you're there, you have access to all of our episodes, insights, and shorts. You can find Clinically Pressed on YouTube and any podcast outlet. If you could give us a rating, thumbs up, or review on how we are doing, we would greatly appreciate it. To get more free content delivered to your inbox, sign up for the Total Athletic Therapy newsletter. You'll get direct links to all new Clinically Pressed episodes, reviews on some of the latest research in health and performance, and links to related podcasts and other items meant to help you make the complicated simple and optimize performance. Thank you for listening, and see you next episode.